Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, depending upon where you are in the world, and welcome to today's DevOps.com webinar. I'm Charlene O'Hanlon, moderator for today's event, and I welcome you. So excited to be here. But before we get started, we have a great webinar on tap, but before we get started, we do have a few housekeeping items we need to go over. First of all, today's event is being recorded, so if you miss any or all of the event, you will have the opportunity to access it later on. Following today's webinar, we will be sending out an email that contains a link to access the webinar on demand. And we are taking questions from the audience, so if at any time during today's presentation you have a question for either of our speakers, please don't wait, don't hesitate, just use that question and answer tab on your interface and submit your questions, and we'll try to get to as many as we can during the webinar. Also, at the end of today's webinar, we are going to be doing a drawing for 4 $25 Amazon gift cards. So please stick around. Hopefully you'll be one of our 4 lucky winners. And I would be remiss if I did not tell you about the 3 polling questions that we have during the course of the presentation and the very interactive chat feature that we have. So we encourage you to chat out your questions, comments, suggestions, whatever you want to share with us. We will be more than happy to take it, and chances are we'll chat you right back. All right, with that, let's go ahead and kick off today's webinar, which is Value Trumps Flow, the Danger of Speed. Our speakers today are Lance Knight, who is the COO and President of ConnectALL, and Eric Robinson, who is the Senior Vice President, Strategic Advisor at ConnectALL. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today. So glad to have you with me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Excellent. I'm so excited about this conversation. You guys are going to have such a good time. But Lance, I know you're gonna start the conversation. I'm going to stay on camera. I'm going to keep myself off mute. I know we got a couple polling questions come up, so I want to be ready for them. But I'll let you take it away for now.
Well, great. Thanks, Charlene. You know, first I want to thank Eric for joining ConnectALL. You know, he's relatively new to us, just came on a couple weeks ago. So deep in the fire hose mode with ConnectALL and learning our unique personalities over here. So we're really excited to have Eric with us. Eric, I know you spent some time looking at a webinar I did a while back called Value Trumps Flow. And I know you looked at that, and I wanted to get your opinion of that and get some of your thoughts about that kind of thought process. And I know you put some slides together so we can start a conversation. So I'm really interested in getting your feedback on the Value Trumps Flow webinar I did. And don't worry, you don't have to be nice. And give me your point of view. And again, we're excited to have you. Charlene, I think you want to start the poll, right? So I'll let you do that.
Yeah, okay, sure. I'll go ahead and kick off the first poll. Let's see. Let's start with this one. Okay, which part of the organization do we have in the house today? So we've got software development, project management, other within IT or other parts of the business. You can go ahead and make your response. We'll leave this polling question open while you guys chatter a little bit, and then we'll circle back and take a look at the results.
Okay, Eric, give me the skinny on what you thought about that presentation put together.
I thought it was great and very timely, Lance, and it's very interesting because the position that I was in was basically working for a company that provided software more for the business side of the house. So traditionally, my background, of course, is software engineering, product management, but a lot of it was I created software and products that were consumed by the DevOps and the agile and DevOps teams, essentially. This was really one of the first times. I did it in the past, but this is the most recent and most timely where I did it for a business function, right? It was legal ops, essentially. So basically, we sold into organizations. Almost every organization now has some type of legal aspects, whether they have internal, getting counsel internal, or they have it outside counsel. But essentially, at the same time, unfortunate and fortunate, we had the COVID going on, and that was causing a major disruption with a lot of organizations from a standpoint of how they now deliver software to their customers and their customer base, and how they deliver digital products, even products overall to their customers. And what was interesting was I was now interacting with organizations that I interacted more from the technical domain. I was now interfacing and talking to legal teams and marketing teams and FinOps teams, and it was very interesting seeing how they also wanted to start practicing efficiency, process improvement, automation, all of the operational excellence that are pretty much we talked about in the DevOps, in the DevSecOps and DevOps world section, is now being replicated and wanting to be achieved in these other organizations. And it's interesting because they are now part of the delivery lifecycle. They're an integral part of it. I mean, a perfect example is one of our customers where it was in the healthcare. It was healthcare and healthcare and insurance. And essentially what happened is that when you go see your doctor, and of course the doctor submitted, your provider submitted to the insurer, they pay the way the contract was written, they only could pay the organization, the doctors and organizations that were with, if the patient was physically on site, right? But it means telehealth, telemedicine, there were not a contractual agreement for that. And so they had to, because of COVID, of course, they had to shift and make adjustments to their operating model. And that exposed me to basically this conversation around the value trumps flow, right? Is yes, they were very interested in optimizing flow and efficiency and things of that nature, but the value itself was how do they very quickly deliver and change those contracts for their customers.
It's kind of like when I say if you go to a bank, an institution, if you go to a large healthcare provider and you say, what are your products? They're not going to say my web app, my IT infrastructure, right? They're going to say depositors or those
loans and
right. And those are products. Our products are insurance now.
Exactly.
Software, IT, all of that supports those products, but they never really are going to say that, right? So they're thinking about full organizational efficiencies, not just the efficiency of what we do in software delivery.
Exactly.
That has a big part of providing organizational efficiencies. That's the value part that we're going to talk more about today.
Exactly. And really it was because they have their own platforms, right? And so it's really about how do you integrate those, not only the tool set, but the platforms and the teams. That was critical. That was a critical learning that came out of my experience there. And that's how I tied it to your presentation.
Awesome. So you guys want to take a look at the poll results real quick?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, great. So I closed the poll and the question was, which part of the organization do we have in the house today? The majority of folks, 32% said they are within other parts of the business. What those other parts are, we don't know. So I did ask folks, if you did choose other parts of the business, please let us know in the public chat what other parts, so we can maybe address some of those. But 27% each said software development and other within IT. And then only 14% said project management. So interesting results there.
Very interesting results and falls in line with kind of my conversation. I was just glance there.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that's where when you talk about value stream management, it's organizational efficiency, like you were talking, Eric, right?
Yeah.
Software development is a big piece of that, of course, but it's full organizational development.
Yes, end to end.
Yeah. Well, take us on to your next slides.
Sure. So I'm going to go ahead and so it's very interesting in your last presentation that you had. You talked about the flow, and you gave definition around value and definition around flow in context of the value stream, right? And you also talked about and referred at, of course, every business is a value delivery system, right? Creates, offer products and services to its customers.
Mm-hmm.
Every organization has value streams, but kind of what I discovered is most people don't know they exist or understand how value flows through them. What is that relationship? There's a knowledge gap between organizations to improve one functional silo, right? Only to create new problems in another. So when it comes to value, right, it seems to be still very subjective in a way, right? Like, for example, I found that business leaders kind of think in terms of speed and outcomes. Development leaders think more in terms of outputs and processes. Mm-hmm. And the C-suite definitely, they were focusing on productivity, right? And so the way to basically model, measure, really look at and understand the business value, I think has opened the door, right, for expanding value streams beyond more in your discussion that you were talking about, which was more that traditional lean manufacturing flow approach when you were talking about flow, right? Uh-huh. So I'm curious to see how that will change, or if it does change when you start expanding the value stream and the definitions where it's more closer to the business versus a DevOps value stream.
I'm thinking about how depending on where you are in the C-suite and who you're talking to, right?
Yeah.
Most of them are worried about how do I grow the business, get more depositors, do all that. That's their kind of thing. How do I achieve these better outcomes?
Yeah.
And as you move down in the value stream, depending upon where you are, that moves into how do I reduce waste? How do I save money? How do I do those things? It kind of flips that. And I don't think we're having that conversation about value trumps flow. Now, there's value in removing waste, right?
Yeah.
To the C-suite, and if you ask me that too, right, I'm interested in how do I grow the business? How do I generate more revenue?
Right.
I'm interested in efficiencies at the same time, but what's more driving is how do we increase revenue and grow the business? I think that's global. I think there's a disconnect between those kind of things sometimes through software delivery and so on.
I think you're correct. So this is another slide that it's based on kind of the showcasing the value stream modeling and the relationships. It's told off as a standard out there, but I like it because what it's showing is kind of that connection between value and the stakeholder and value stream, and how it is connected and linked to process and capabilities, right? Mm-hmm. And what's interesting here is that if I take this model and the relationship here, and then I start, I'm going to just, I think I borrow one of your maps that you did in one of your presentations. I kind of condensed it in around that area, in kind of to showcase and really understand. So the relationship of what you're looking at on that right-hand side is kind of you're mapping out and you're looking at the flow and you've got these metrics here, but does the context that you're showing here, how does that map back to, say, process and capabilities, which essentially, as you can see here on that left-hand side, critical for creating that value and delivering it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we just talked about this before the call, a little bit of the flow and how value flows through this, right? And you talked about more of the mapping relationship with the capabilities and other things like this. And then as I was looking at it today with you, I kind of had a little bit of, I wouldn't call it an epiphany, but I had an epiphany as I was thinking about the defined design stage, and there's so much focus on wait states and so on, right? And those flow metrics, for example, in the design phase, how long does something sit there? And that's a flow metric, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it affects your overall total, time to cache. Then we're talking about how backlogs get filled with all kinds of things, and some things take longer, and how more valued priorities move through the backlog quicker.
Yeah.
That gave me this point of view. And I'm going to say it in the call, I'll probably hear a backlash from it later. But truly, I think at that point in the value stream, that wait state metric, what's the exact name of it? It's on the top of my head. The wait state metric that when you're waiting. Anyway, there's a metric for that. And that's how long it sits in the backlog or how long it sits waiting to go into process.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a feckless metric. I don't think it really gives you any insight. As you think about the things in a backlog, software delivery, anywhere in here, they're different sizes. They take longer to decompose. It's not like in manufacturing where you take these parts, you put them into what they call it holding. Then they take the parts back out, put them in a cell, finish up the delivery, right?
Right.
And they would wait, and the expediters would move around the shop floor. And you remember that, right?
Yeah.
That's not the same in software delivery. So what can I really learn that's actionable?
Mm-hmm.
And then I was saying, well, this one says 40 hours, but that's not really true in the product management play, right? And you're also missing the portfolio piece of a three-tiered like governance thing here as well. But what I'm getting is that metric, and I want you to either agree or disagree with me. So I'm going to put you on the spot. What is that as a past product manager, knowing how long something waits in the backlog for you to push through? How valuable is that?
Well, it's kind of like I'm in Houston right now, and I'm on the way to Dallas. So I'm in Houston. I just start driving, right? And then someone says, "Hey, you got half a tank," right? And it may be, in a lot of cases, a very critical metric, but without context of the destination, right? Do I have like just 5 miles left to my destination? 100 miles, 200 miles? And guess what? If I'm driving a Tesla, I don't care. So about gas, right? So it's got to be context to, and I think you brought this up with, is that showing that the portfolio and the things of that nature. I don't have, unless I have context of the of what I'm trying to achieve, right? To be in Dallas by 3 p.m. Okay, so that means if I'm leaving at 2 p.m., there's no way I'm going to make it, right? I need context in order to intelligently decide things like and prioritize things like in a backlog.
So that's true too, right? So when you look at this particular value stream, which is pretty linear from what really happens, of course, but the things that are moving through the value stream and are waiting in the queue, because those queues are pretty big, right? The work intake can have a large backlog, and some things will just sit there. So unless you're able to tie the things in that backlog to business outcomes or value, things of no value that might be prioritized in a different way will flow through that.
Right. So here's the irony, and I think you're gonna get this, right? What is missing in that diagram that you have right there on the right? That it is highlighted on the left in this value stream map. I'm saying it again, value stream map. What is missing in this value stream map?
Value.
Well, of course, I already know because you showed it to me earlier. But exactly what I touched on, right? Where does a demonstrator show value flow, or the flow of value anyway, right? It just shows that something came in, waited 40 hours, took an hour to define, waited another 40 hours. So what was it that came in, and why was that more valuable than something else, right? And that's the interesting thing. And does it tie to a business outcome I'm trying to achieve to increase my depositors or hit some organizational efficiencies or organizational operational goals? Is it something I have to do because there's a security issue and that has the highest value?
And also it still is very IT centric. It doesn't take into account other external organizations and their artifacts that are part of that value in the delivery.
So Charlene, I'm going to help you out because I know how him and I got Lincoln, and you're not going to find a moment to interject.
Just trying to get that word in edgewise. We got a couple chat comments in here I wanted to kind of point out to you. And first of all, I don't think this is a person's real name, Dumb Me, but you know. So Dumb Me does say WSJF kill a lot of epic features we designed since everybody wanted quick wins, and I'm sure that the developers all kind of feel the same way. It's like we've worked so hard to get these great features in, and they're all for naught. So, and then expected quick win value trumps sustainable value. It's exactly what you guys are talking about. So, it seems like, at least for some of the audience members, you guys are preaching to the choir here.
It does feel that way, and so, you know, so I would like what do we mean by sustainable value? Let's wrap on that for a second, Eric. Right. That's a good point of view to say that that's true, right? Because there's different types of value, right? And depending on what that is. So I would ask Dummy to say, what does he mean by sustainable value? And we can wrap on that a little bit. But I think I'm aligned with what you're saying. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think I have a theory on what he means by that sustainable value. And I think it goes in line with what we're probably going to be talking about. In other words, it's not just one-offs, right? It is, right? It's not, again, the mindset thinking, especially if you're in a more of a project-centric type of organization, right? It is that tends to be where the sustainability is not necessarily the one of the goals or objectives around that. So, but definitely the other piece of it that I saw was, and when you talked about in the flow, is the relationship of integration with flow and value, right? And how that ties in. So is that getting viewpoints on that one?
He did answer it. So he answered it here. And yes, you're absolutely aligned with what we're saying, right? It's to support the business strategy and expect success. Lining up to, I'm going to say the word, and Eric's going to be really animated when I say this, lining to your business outcomes and using OKRs.
It could be OKRs. It could be anything. You can call it whatever. Right. But basically, what you need is the ability to measure the results and link that back to what the business objectives and goals and what they're trying to achieve, and to make sure that, hey, am I moving in that right direction? Am I following that North Star?
Yeah.
Okay? Do I need
sustainable value idea? Because there's perceived value, right? And then there's that stuff that is truly valuable. And so when I think about that from a software business perspective, I think of feature bloat.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, is that really valuable to have that in your product, right? We all understand how great Microsoft Word is, but there's so many things I don't even touch in there. And you know what I mean? And Excel has all kinds of things that we don't use. So over time, you get into this place where you're thinking, this is value, this is valuable. But it's valuable to one small segment of one particular customer base. and it doesn't really cover the full valuable things for your customer. Anyway, just where I kind of went in my mind with that. But back to what you're saying here with the importance of integration. That was to get you talking about your slide again, Eric. You're paused.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the first time I ever saw him.
Thinking about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Just thinking. No.
No, I saw that. I thought you were going to say one more thing around that, but essentially, kind of what I also saw was when talking about integration is it's really not just kind of the integration as far as these tools, right? Or point to point.
We're not talking about tool integration.
Exactly. I mean, companies, they're talking about, they have to change their operating model, right? And they're talking about having an integrated type of operating model, right? Between IT and their digital organizations, because essentially these other organizations across are digital organizations, right? And they need to be more in a single model for planning, delivering, and managing technology around it, right?
Well, that's the people, process, and tools.
Yeah, exactly. So I give you an example of that. So historically, it was interesting. Like I said before, I was mostly kind of really focused in the tech ops domain world, IT operations model, and I started seeing the shift left where the operationalizing downstream was now starting to also happen upstream, right? So DevOps, focus on orchestrating the continuous delivery pipeline, as we all know. It spawned additional ops within the technical domain, as you can see there as well, right? So you saw all these different op variations starting to form and focus now also on the business side of the house as well, right? So these up functions emerge as new specialities. The industry kind of call them digital ops, essentially. But one of the focus that I had in my business was with legal ops, right? And I kind of gave you an example of why that was critical in that connection, because it basically tied, especially for B2B type of companies, digital contracts, right? Were part of that, and the contract life cycle need to be integrated into sales, procurement. They all need to be all tied together. So essentially, the front end and the back end, right, and really understanding the customer needs, and with the crucial back end to make sure that it firmly gets delivered there. FinOps was another big one, where the practice bringing financial accountability to the cloud spend, enabling teams to make informed business decisions. It empowered that collaboration between IT, engineering, finance, procurement, and the business, right? And so what this meant is that these organizations are saying, hey, these type of best practices or approaches that you had on the IT side, right? So being able to have that data model, workflows, identify process, identify value streams specifically around their particular organization, and more importantly, value streams that connected them, that allowed them to basically have collaborative processes and workflows that can perform across multiple op teams and even multiple tool sets as well, right? And if you're able to have that there, then they can start taking advantage, what we saw purely on the tech ops side, now being more aligned together, the automation piece of it, and also the intelligence, right? The intelligence can be utilized across business and technical operations, right? Through this integrated platform, right? So you're now talking about integrating customer experience, business capability, core IT together to basically enable that. So you enable that flow, right? Because you have that integration and connection, but you also have that value now, right? That is on top of that, flowing with it.
It's interesting, as I look at this diagram, I'm reminded of my time working as an IT director in large aerospace manufacturing.
Mm-hmm.
In every one of these organizational departments, put work intake into IT.
Yep.
Right? Everyone, like fin ops, as you're saying, finance. I need you to up Oracle ERP and do this, and I need you to modify Oracle ERP and do this. All these things lead into IT doing things in an organization. Now, this was a long time ago, and at that time, IT reported to the CFO. That's all changed now, right? It's strategic to the business because it's providing the tools necessary for these organizations to be more efficient.
Yes, exactly.
Salesforce for sales, HR tools.
Exactly. So
accounting tools, marketing tools, right?
All
So
those
have
systems,
their tools.
right? Yeah. Distinctly, right? They're distinct units, right, that you described, but the value is based on how effectively they work together, right? So that's the people, right? To your people, process,
right,
tools, right? And most of the companies, they kind of overlook the criticality of making, all of these components work together seamlessly because their attention is focused really on individual projects and not the value streams.
Right. My last point to my point is that tech ops is in servitude of those other organizations.
Yeah.
Interesting. We've gotten some great chat messages in again from Dummy. He's very chatty on the chat, which I love, but he's making some really, really great observations. He said, let's see, trying hard to implement tech ops best practices in business ops by argumentation of shift left risk reduction improvements, but the new transparency is not the friend of business ops.
Yes. So, and we're going to talk about that actually, because that to me, I think transparency is something that needs to be across, because what I discovered working with the individual, particularly in the legal ops, I got that highlighted there, it was still kind of very siloed in their way, and the integrations were still kind of considered kind of a point-to-point type of. And it was kind of the introduction of the mindset of this is not really a project that you're doing. This is more of a product, and this is more of a interconnected organization. Is interconnected with, and is more of a kind of a shared teams. So what was interesting is I started even getting legal folks part of the PM, product management team, right? In fact, some of them were even PMs and POs.
Wow.
In that, right? Which was necessary in order to help drive that collaboration and that transparency across the business units with the technical units as well. And so what that allowed us to do, and so that's why, what you kind of had, what I read earlier, you kind of called it the material flows or whatever there. It's kind of very myopic, right? Very myopic what we were showing there, because it doesn't take an account. It takes an account of flow within one section, but it definitely doesn't take an account of the value that it needs in order to really understand what is being delivered and why.
Yeah, it's more team-based flow, not organizational flow that I've noticed, right? Yeah. So it's really interesting. And when you talk about integration, we're talking about all kinds of integrations. We're talking about people here. You're talking about process. Yeah. We're talking about the integration of teams, right?
Yeah.
Not just tooling. It's how organizationally they all work together, right?
Yeah.
Value stream management is not necessarily a technical thing. It's actually a human thing. And companies like ConnectALL provide platforms to help the humans look at how their value is flowing and improve that flow and value delivery within their organizations. Really, it's still a human thing, right? It's I'm going to go look at how you're doing it. I may need to put in value stream put in some type of organizational automation here or there. And it may not mean buying more software. It may be hiring different people or putting different people in different parts of the organization to be more effective. It's not always just the software. Although I do have to put a ConnectALL plugin always. Ours is the best at it. But
well, it's interesting that you said, I when I first joined, I was a little bit confused by you said the human is the value stream or that the way you kind of described it there. And then I look back at this picture and I'm like, so team is central here. Team is made up of what? Humans.
Or aliens. Could be some aliens in
It could be.
So, and this does look a little like a spacecraft, so maybe you're channeling that. But really, that's a hard point we put out a lot about at ConnectALL. Value stream management is human. The managing of your value stream is done by humans.
Yep.
Right? The humans, I hate to say the humans, we, the contributors in organization, the people, we create the value stream maps. We look at the processes and try to be more efficient. The tools should support what we're uncovering.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how ConnectALL looks at it. So when you look at ConnectALL, we connect all the tools, and we do a great job at that. It's how you use those tools to improve processes and efficiency, and that connection is value stream management.
Yeah.
Now, that's our take on it. I know that's a little different than some other people, but it's really our goal to help people understand how to use the principles that Eric, you and I learned for years in manufacturing. Lean manufacturing, Six Sigma, theories of constraints, systems thinking, using those things that you learned over the years to improve the flow of work, no matter what organizational place you're at. If you're sitting here in sales, how do I design a better sales method and process to achieve my outcomes differently?
Yes.
Right? Not differently, but more effectively.
Right.
And that type of mindset and thinking goes across a whole organization. And using those skills you learned at Motorola, I learned at a company called Tech Corporation, to help all organizational aspects be more efficient. And applying those principles here. So my point on all that is just coming right back to what I'm saying. I can't teach theories of constraints, systems thinking, lean, and all of that to a computer.
Yes, that was my world. That's what I came from. Nowadays, and what I'm hearing now is things or topics like observability, right? Which kind of goes into the next question here that we've been getting a lot of. If you are doing the observability and you have that monitoring at that IT structural level, can you leverage that same type of practice and capabilities on the business side as well and connect the two? What's your thoughts there on that?
Absolutely. I mean, there's IT observability, right? And I know that's a new kind of thing we're all talking about, so I'm not gonna go deep into that. But absolutely, right? I monitor and observe everything that's happening in the field with our customers, right? And we get reports, and if servers or systems are down for customer value delivery and what we do, you're always monitoring and looking at your cash flow. All of this is about observing the business, right? So, and observability means different things to different organizations, right? And right now, I think observability is being defined in different ways by different organizations. And I don't have a point of view yet on how ConnectALL does observability, but I will within a week or two. And when I have it, I'll share my point of view. But it is organizationally, from my perspective, right? As the COO, I look at and understand all aspects of how the business is working, and I have triggers and flags and things I look at to try to understand how we're doing as a corporation, right? And observe all kinds of different things.
Well, I think this is where
You kind of put me on the spot there with that question.
Paramount.
What do you think?
Yeah. Yay. That's what I'm hearing. I think it's paramount that for you to have the observability, I think you have to really answer that value flow question, right? I mean, you really have to understand that because if you don't, then the observability or the results and what you're basically monitoring or interpolating from that is myopic. It is again that little slice that we showed earlier, right?
Well, so you're right. I think here's my add-on to your kind of point there is if I'm not just to sit there and observe something to observe it, without intent to an outcome,
right?
Then why do that?
Where's the value? Yeah.
Where's the value in that, right? I could sit there and just look at Salesforce all day and wait for the numbers to go up. That would be a pretty good waiting game, but doing that all the time wouldn't be worth doing, right? Because I've got to look at the other things, the other leading metrics that observe to where I want to get to.
Right.
And that's the same in IT. You don't want to look at metrics that say you've had these many hacks and this much malware and so on. You want to know, hey, I want to know what am I at risk of getting hacks and malware for? Right. So, observation's an interesting thing. I know everybody's observing this webinar waiting for me to crack another stupid joke, I'm sure. But you really have to look at it through that context, I think, of just having metrics for metrics' sake is not.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it goes back to whoever the guy was, I forget his name, that made a point about, again, the transparency, which around, right, that is essentially one of the big problems or challenges that I faced within organizations, both as a consumer and also as a producer. So
it's very true. I got a story, right? So years ago, I was working for another company. I came in doing what I do, right?
Yep.
I said, okay, well, I noticed that we don't have any metrics here. And I'd like to get some metrics to understand a few things. These are the kind of metrics I want to look at. And this was in a marketing capacity. I want to know how many leads we're getting. How many sites? I want to start measuring things, right? Peter Drucker, you can't manage something until you measure it, right? And the response I got from somebody in the marketing team was this, and it really stepped me back when I heard him say that. Well, if we measure this stuff, then everybody's going to know that our measurements are off, or we're not getting these things, right? Or or it's not looking good. I said, good.
Right.
I said, that's good because you can't fix it till you know it's broken. So let's measure it, get some transparency. But the point is that people are afraid of being measured. So you gotta be very specific of the metrics you're looking at. It. Anyway, my last point on that is don't measure people, measure outcomes, measure goals to outcomes. I want to say that because I said people were getting upset about being measured. But if you measure the teams and so on, it's a different game. So anyway, that falls to your transparency point, I hope, that you're trying to make here.
It is because basically I think this is where kind of the plot thickens in a way, right? Because now the question kind of becomes, is your company, the operating model that you put together, the changes that all these companies are evolving, is it really keeping up with their strategy? And so that's probably the biggest feedback that I'm getting when I go into a lot of these companies, is that they're under pressure, of course, to respond more quickly, rapidly change due to the competitive and circumstances and other disruptions in the marketplace. And so what I discovered working with some of the executives is that before they were more likely to have these 5-year type of plans, right? That was one standard, right? 3 to 5 year standards, right? And they're been shying away from that and kind of really focusing on more the tactical, but at the same time, they're finding out that even these tactical business goals, right, they're not able to achieve them, right? And in the current environment, it's paramount for all the levels of management to be aligned and link a company's strategy to his organization, right? And if they're able to do that, then they're able to really truly measure and understand that their operating model is actually, if the results that can be measured, then it's truly delivering desired outcomes that they need in order to drive the business, right? And so I think if the metrics are, keeping to our story here, more, value focused type of performance metrics that can again link back to the business and the desired outcomes, right? And so what I mean by that is, defining what I saw as word is defining a few performance metrics for around the team. I think you mentioned this, in partnership with business leaders, right? And also these metrics can measure both, let's say, the value creation, right? Is a team contributing to the business, and to deliver the work? Is a team meeting its commitments, right? For example, the team managing, let's say, the search product please describe might be assigned a target for increasing the proportion of, let's say, online searches that convert to sales in support of a broader strategic goal, which is to lift e-commerce sales, as an example, right? So you're kind of mapping it, right, to an overarching outcome that you're trying to achieve for the business, right? And so everybody is marching along in a line toward that, rather than more of an individualistic type of view on their performance. Does that make sense?
I've come to this point of view, and I've shared this with you too, as we've talked about these types of things and value trumping flow and so on. I've come to this point of view that these words that are out there, strategy, outcomes, outputs, metrics, I don't think a lot of the people that we're talking to about really understand them.
Yeah.
The word strategy, what does that really mean? And when you say, my strategy is to become the world's best e-commerce experience. That's my strategy. I challenge you, that's not a strategy.
No, that's not a strategy.
That's a goal.
That's more of a goal or mission, right?
That's a goal, right? That's what I'm trying to become the best, right? That's not a strategy. A strategy has so many different components to it, right? And so it's interesting as you look at strategy compared to an outcome or an output. And so I'm leading into another webinar of our opinion on strategy to outcomes to output. Right? Output is easiest to define in that because it's something you're doing and you get an output.
Yeah.
Right. An outcome becomes another level higher of obfuscation. And then strategy also has so many moving pieces to it as you think through it. Right. So I'm going to tee up another webinar we'll do on defining those for our take on those things. Right. Because it's really interesting.
I think, I think it's been interesting because I work with a couple of customers and in the past, and really looked at how to translate their strategy into results, right? And into measurable, how can they measure? Measure the results and to see how are they achieving that. And that goes, we utilize OKRs in that. But again, call it whatever you want. It is having more tangible type of measurements, right? Again, I go back to the car analogy, right? If I can't link, you're telling me I'm going 55 miles per hour, and you're telling me, the oil setting and is on this radio station, is all that. If I can't map that to, I'm trying to get to this destination and by this time, and this is why, then it doesn't matter, right? And if you can then map, let's say, okay, we're going at this speed, but by the way, if we change and go with this direction, take this highway, we can go 75 miles per hour, and we can get there, and we can achieve that, right? So is how can I make these adjustments, right, early on, by having actionable, taking these metrics or whatever you give to me, actionable, where I can take this and do things, whether it's corrective or proactive, right, in order for me to achieve ultimately my goals. But right now, I really need to achieve my objectives.
Hey guys, I just want to jump in and just let you guys know, time check, we're about 9 minutes to the top of the hour, so sorry.
We have another poll left, and then I got another point for you, Charlene. I think Eric's pushing for a new car in this webinar.
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. Yeah.
So. Yeah, a Tesla, if you've been paying attention.
A Tesla. Yeah, we keep hearing Tesla. I don't know what's going on. You getting paid by Elon Musk? No.
That's another topic.
We are paying him in Dogecoin, just so you know.
Right.
Yeah. It sounded good when I took the job 3 months ago. Yeah. But so with that, I think it's another poll, and then I think we can wrap it up with this last question then.
All right, great. So yeah, I just pushed out the polling question: which objectives drive value for your organization? You can choose from increase in customer satisfaction, improvement in operational and delivery processes, increase in decision-making speed, driving innovation for their industry, increase in employee engagement, or gains in efficiency. So go ahead and make your choice. You guys can, riff for a minute or two also, and then I'll interrupt you again and we'll take a look at the polling results, but I don't want to take any time from you. So go right ahead with your conversation.
So you line up your last slide here, Eric. This is your last one. And then we got to bring it home to value trumps flow.
Yep.
Kind of points, right, on that. And
this is the last slide. So go ahead and if you want to kick that off on that, I can give you my viewpoint. So I think when I started off with your presentation that you had, my hypothesis is that coming out of it is that and doing the having the additional experience, my hypothesis is that companies need to connect their digital technologies and operation capabilities in an integrated, well-sequenced way, i.e. the flow, right, to achieve these step-by-step improvements, right, in revenue and customer experience, right, and cost, and right, in order to continuously build, deliver, and I think we could probably even say sustain value, right? Because now you have that linkage there.
One of the points I was trying to make, sorry, Eric, one of the points I was trying to make in that as well is in the pursuit of improving flow, you have risk in reducing value. Right? If I remove these processes that define things better, does that downwardly reduce the value of what I'm putting into the market? It can introduce new defects. It can do all these things. And then secondly, what I'm taking for what you're saying is, are those things that we're doing connected to other operational efficiencies to bring value through the process, right?
Yes.
And if I'm not looking at that, am I at risk of delivering things that aren't valuable?
Yes, and you make a fantastic point, because I can optimize or do flow. I could remove waste, let's say in a particular organization for me, that I accomplished that, but could impact customer experience for another organization.
Right. Or does it, I could do something, and does that impact, right? This is systems thinking and not so much a value stream management, but it's the same thing, right? What happens to my emergent output to other people, right?
Yeah.
So if I introduce this new capability, what happens to the value of these other things that I'm trying to do?
And I think that's, to me, I think that's where observability really shines, or to me brings an additional differentiation in this space.
All right, you guys want to take a look at these poll results?
Yeah, let's wrap with that.
Okay. All right. So the question was, which objectives drive value for your organization? There was a tie for first place. 33% each said increase in customer satisfaction and improvement in operational and delivery processes.
Wow.
So yeah. So beyond that, the next largest number was 13% who said gains in efficiency. And then we had single digits in increase in decision-making speed, driving innovation for their industry, and increase in employee engagement. So obviously, folks understand the meaning of value in an organization, and that's good news. And I guess the big question is whether they're actually doing the things that do add value to the organization.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, guys, I think we're going to need to start to close up the conversation, because I do need a couple of minutes on the back end to do my housekeeping stuff. So if you guys want to do your final question or final comments, and then we'll move to that.
Do you have a timer for us?
I do.
I'm going to close up and just say, Eric, so glad to have you with us. I'm looking forward to more conversations like this inside the company, as well in these webinars and here with DevOps.com. And I really appreciate you guys at DevOps.com hosting our webinar today.
Well, we appreciate you guys coming on and doing such a fantastic presentation. You guys are what make the DevOps.com webinars so successful. So thank you guys for being such a great presentation team. So, and obviously the content is a huge part of it as well. So, and considering the number of chats that we got, people were engaged, especially Dummy. Dummy was very engaged. So thank you, Dummy. And maybe next time you'll actually tell us your real name. So, but yeah, so very insightful comments that you provided. So thank you very, very much. Real quick, a reminder to the audience that today's event has been recorded. So if you missed any or all of the event, or if you just want to watch it again, you'll have the opportunity to do so. We are going to be sending out an email after today's webinar that contains a link to access the webinar on demand. And the webinar is also going to be living on the DevOps.com website. So you can always go look for it there. Just go to DevOps.com/webinars and look in the on-demand section, and it should be right there waiting for you. Okay. All right, real quick, let's do that drawing for the $425 Amazon gift cards. Drawing's actually already been done. So the winners are Margarita M. Congratulations, Margarita. Heleno, I think it is. Heleno A. Congratulations, Heleno. Kathy with a C. C. Congratulations, Kathy. And finally, Fred N. Congratulations, Fred. We'll be following up with all four of you via email to get your Amazon gift card over to you. So please check your inbox. And if you don't see it there, please check your spam folder. Lance, Eric, as I said already, you guys did a fantastic job. Thank you so much for your time, your energy, your insight, your experience. Love it, all of it. So thank you again for being here on the webcast today.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
All right. Yay, Eric's back. Okay. All right. I also want to thank the audience for joining me today. This is Charlene O'Hanlon, and I'm signing off. Have a great day, everybody, and please stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.